I've been knocked down too much to knock it back up, and I bring the house down whenever the odds are stacked up against me.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, generally speaking, I always kind of start these podcasts by getting like kind of background of who I'm talking to. And, I know that you're very involved in bodybuilding. Can you kind of tell us like what got you interested in, fitness, nutrition, training?
So I've always, like, from a very young age, been involved in sport. I'm super competitive, and I've always competed to a relatively high level, in whatever respective field I was competing in. It used to be, I think you guys just call it track and field, but 100-meter sprint,
Yeah.
was my forte. So yeah, after I left school and my dream of being in the Olympics kind of died with that. Um, I just started going to the gym. I really wanted to be confident in my body and with my body image. And when I felt like I'd done that, I was a bit like, okay, well, like what now? And it was just somebody in work that said to me, "Oh, I'm a bodybuilder. Like you should look into it. I think you'd be quite good at it." And I Googled it and the rest is history. I just was obsessed from there.
So what made that so the person that was at your job, was it a female bodybuilder or male?
A male.
Okay. So what made him think that you were going to be good at it? Were you already like at that, pretty good level of physique at that point?
Yeah, so I had no muscle anywhere other than glutes. So that's
Hmm.
all I trained. I trained glutes 5 times a week, and I hadn't trained any other body part because I just wanted to look like Tammy Hembrow at the time. And just yeah, just have glutes, glutes, glutes. So yeah, I started with pretty much nothing. So that was my obsession for the time being. And he thought, okay, this you'd be good in bikini was the idea at the beginning. So
So what year
yeah,
was that?
that was 20 that was 2019.
Okay. So
Um,
that was essentially the begin, but didn't Fran win the Arnold at that point? Wasn't that like the first
I
ever
think
Arnold Wellness? Like I think it was like an amateur show at first, right? Or something like that. I
yeah,
can't remember.
I think she won a pro card in
Yes.
2020, and then she competed in the
Okay.
Olympia in 2021.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe I'm a year behind, but yeah, yeah, I remember because that was like the beginnings of wellness in the, at least in the IFBB. So, so
Yeah.
so did you go into bikini at that point?
Yeah, so it was around the time of lockdown as well. So I started working with my coach and I was supposed to compete in 2020. However, lockdown happened 3 weeks before my show, so it got cancelled. And because I had nothing to do in lockdown other than train, I
Right.
accidentally outgrew the division a little bit. But I wasn't fully aware of that at the time. I just thought, okay, well, I'll just regress my training. And I stopped training legs altogether because I was like, I've got more chance of doing well in bikini at this point than I do in wellness. So that was the idea, just, focus on bikini. And I did my very first show and I came dead last in open junior first timers. And they were like, what on earth are you doing in bikini? Like, you need to do wellness. And I was looking at the girl in wellness thinking, are you joking? Like she had come down from it looked like physique or figure. She was huge at the time to
Yeah.
my memory. She probably wouldn't be as big to me now, but at the time, like I've never seen that much muscle in real life on a female. So I was like, oh. So anyway, I came back the next day and I did wellness and I won the juniors and I won the open and yeah, I was
Y-
obsessed from there.
So you said the next day. So
The next day, yeah,
okay, so you already had, essentially a wellness physique at that point, basically,
yeah,
because I mean, for you to come back to the very next day and do a wellness show and win, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So, and at that point, you just decided to go ahead and go with wellness, huh?
yeah. I thought I just needed to stop fighting my genetics at that point and just accept that, the division chooses you at the end of the day. And
True.
choosing.
True.
So
Yeah, I think wellness was a great addition because there's so many girls that and you can tell because it's grown so fast in just a few years. It's a very popular division for women, and there's a lot of girls that kind of would fall into wellness, but when wellness wasn't around, they really had nowhere to go. They tried to, like you, tried to fit into bikini, tried to fit in somewhere else, maybe, a more muscular division. And, it just wasn't the right fit. So they would compete there, but they just would never do well, obviously, for, obvious reasons. And so
Yeah.
I think it was just a great addition to the IFBB. Sure.
Yeah, 100%. I literally wouldn't be able to compete without it. I'd either have to not train at all. Like my physique would never fit figure, and it's not a look that I would necessarily want either.
Hmm.
However, bikini, like the proof's in the pudding. Like you can stop training and you may lose a little bit of tissue, but you also lose like the actual volume from the muscle. You're no longer round and poppy. It's kind of everything's just kind of flat and small. And I saw that the changes that I made from that very first wellness show, the day after the bikini show, to 13 weeks later at the British finals was crazy. And that was literally just from training legs.
Yeah.
Like I didn't put on a load of muscle, but it looked completely different because I was finally actually, you know, stimulating the muscle, I actually pushing the carbs in and training it. So yeah, I looked like a different person altogether at that point.
Yeah, it gives you just like more, just a different type of look. It's not like you said, it's not even, I've talked to people, I've know this from myself too. Like a lot of times it's how you train and how you eat might not necessarily add weight. Like your scale might not be that much different, but you look so different. And that's probably what you're referring to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the food side of it as well. Like the difference of how I looked before I started bodybuilding to when I actually cared about my diet. Like even though I was eating way more food, like but the quality of the food was so much better and I just looked a million times better, like within a
Yeah.
matter of like months.
Was
So
it was it difficult for you to get lean, or was that like an easy process for you?
the very first time it was easy because I was quite slight anyway. Because I did a lot of when I wasn't training glutes, I was doing some kind of hip training, just throwing
Hmm.
myself around the gym.
Hmm.
So I did a lot of fitness classes and things like that. So the first time was easy. I felt like I literally blinked and I was shredded. However, the times after that, I'd put on so much weight after my shows because I lack food guilt. Like I love to eat and I don't feel bad about it. So it's like the discipline side of things I just hadn't quite mastered yet. But I've
Yeah.
got better progressively through the weeks. But without having that like pressure of a show, I find it really difficult to tell myself no.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think I've got to be fine this time around. I think.
I think sometimes also when you like when you still look good and you still like people are still complimenting you and you still got muscle and you're training hard at the gym, you can fool yourself into thinking, oh, it's okay, like and then
Yeah.
but it's real, at a certain point it's not okay. So,
100%. That's the thing. There's not enough there wasn't enough kind of repercussions. But then before you know it, like you've gone too far and there's no going back from there. So yeah.
for sure, for sure. So you competed, you said 13 weeks later you competed where in the British finals?
Yeah, the British finals, yeah.
And how was that?
That was good. Junior and open class win, and I was 1 point away from getting my pro card that year.
Mm,
But I thought I went there and I was so ill the morning of. I was like vomiting, diarrhea, like profusely sweating, like I was so ill. And I
mhm.
just thought like I just want this day to be over. Like I just didn't even want to get on stage, but I'm like, I've paid all this money, I've come all this way, like I need to do it. So I did
Yeah.
it. And when I won my class, I literally cried my eyes out. I was so overwhelmed because I felt like that was my official wellness debut because I'd actually trained for it at that point. Um, so yeah, to then be told afterwards, like, I was 1 point away from getting my pro card, I was just overwhelmed. Third ever show. I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's almost like it would be better to not be close than to be
I
one
know,
point away. It's like
I
really
know.
1 point.
Painful.
But so who gets at the British finals, who gets the pro card? Is it the overall?
Hmm.
Mm,
Her name, funnily enough, is Haley Overall.
mm,
She won. She was in class C. So yeah,
okay.
she won the pro card in that show. It's very the pro cards in the UK compared to America. Like I saw one show the other day, and there was like a pro card for masters, a pro card for
Oh
multiple height
yeah.
classes. Like they do not give them out like that over here. So
Yeah, they said in Europe it's like it's scarce. It's
yeah,
almost how in Europe like pro cards is how in the US it used to be like back in the day, and in
yeah,
like the 90s they didn't throw them out as easily. Now in the US there's more opportunities to get pro cards. And I mean, I think they still, it's a big debate now, like whether they should allow that many pro cards. On one hand, people say, well, it's growing the sport. There's more divisions. So on that hand, it's good. But then on the other hand, people are saying, well, it kind of devalues the pro card if so many people
yeah.
can get it so easily. So I don't know. I mean, both sides have a good point. What do you think?
I think that even if you win your class, if you're not good enough to get a pro card, you shouldn't get it. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
whoever wins the overall or whoever wins their class. There should be an unanimous decision amongst the judges that this person, regardless of the result, is good enough to get a pro card. And I think the same should be said as to, if you have a phenomenal person that comes in first place and a phenomenal person that comes in second place, and they both are pro standard, then I think equally they should both be given a pro card, and it shouldn't just be a matter of like 1 point difference, for example. Um, so
Just for example.
just for
Yeah.
example, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard anybody give that as an option. That's actually a pretty good option to like the way to do it, because honestly, if the judges agree, then like that would be a good way to decide whether someone gets the pro card, because somebody could win in like a week, show, but still not be good enough really to compete with pros. Because what
Exactly.
happens a lot of times is people will get their pro card, but then it will take them years to get to the level where they can make a decent debut, and I feel like it's unnecessary. I mean, why give a pro card to a person who's going to need more, 2-3 years of development before they're going to step on stage again? So
Exactly. It definitely shouldn't be result based. It should be quality based, in
yeah,
my opinion. That would stop people from it just being a really, really poor quality show. This person is never going to be pro standard, never going to be competitive as a pro, but because they were the best out of a bad bunch on that particular day, they
yeah,
got a pro. It's just I just don't think that's the way it should be done. But yeah,
yeah. Well, maybe they'll listen to you. I don't
yeah,
know.
maybe.
So at this point, are you prepping for a show, or like where are you at right now with your competitive career?
I am 2 days out from my pro debut.
Oh,
So yeah, I flew out here Monday. So I'm competing at the RGV Classic on Saturday, and then on Sunday I fly to Dallas and I'm competing at the Heart of Texas.
oh,
And
nice, beautiful.
yeah, and then the Sunday that like 1 day later after that, I'm flying home to the UK and I've got the Europa Pro that Sunday, which is in London. And that is the last Olympia qualifier for this year. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing it to qualify for the Olympia. Obviously, that would be phenomenal. But I did know that Tyler Mannion was head judging that show. So I thought, okay, I wasn't even going to prep this year. I just thought, right, Tyler Mannion's head judging. I need feedback from him. So I'm going to prep. And then I just thought, well, I wanted to get in front of American judges, so he's
Mhm.
coming over here. I might as well come over here first and have it, 3 times over. So,
Yeah,
um,
well, I mean, it does do like really a few things. One, it puts your face in front of, like you said, like American judges. You're going to compete in America, which is great. And then yeah, Tyler, even if by some chance you don't qualify, which I'm sure you will, but you'll at least get feedback to where like you can go into your off season with something to work on.
yeah, 100%. Like my feedback from last year, just I couldn't really it was, oh, you don't need that much more muscle. Like, oh no, you don't need much muscle, but your condition just needs to be like significantly better, and you need to downsize your shoulders. So I've not trained shoulders since last October. My condition is significantly better, and I've put on a little bit more muscle. So I think I've done what I can to the letter of what I've been told, but it was a little bit vague. Like when
Yeah.
gives you feedback. He's like, okay, more upper glute, like less this, like it's a bit more like specific. So that's
Right.
what I want.
Yeah, that's vague feedback is kind of tough because it doesn't really give you like a good, good idea to what to,
Yeah.
what to adjust. It's kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this thing and hopefully it,
Yeah, exactly.
I get what they're looking for. But yeah, that's interesting. And so you're a few days out. How did the prep go?
The prep has been so smooth. Like, if you told me I was 6 weeks into this prep, I would believe you. Like, it's been the smoothest, easiest, plain sailing prep ever. Um, I've only done 30 minutes of cardio 5 times a week. Like, yeah, it's just been an absolute breeze. I've loved it.
So like what made this prep um easier than like any other preps?
Definitely my start point. Like, I was in a lot better shape at the beginning than I was in previous preps,
Mhm.
due to the prep beforehand being so out of control on the post-show phase.
Mhm.
So I did rein it in a little bit after I got my pro card last year, and that has helped me to be in a better position to yes, have a better starting point this time around.
Gotcha. Did you post I know you've got some pictures up. I'm about to pull it up here. Um which ones of these are recent time, like more recent photos? Can you see them?
Um
Is it
yes, so the one in the green top, that the fourth one in.
so I'm colorblind. You got is
Okay, on the left. So
go back.
so yeah. So that was when I got here the day after I flew
Okay.
in. Um so I was still holding a little bit of water from the flight. I've got kind of tighter each
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
So
go
is that
across
is that from the flight? You think that you're holding the water?
a little bit, yeah.
Mhm.
Just fatigue as well. I was absolutely shattered. Like, the time difference is like 6 hours, so I'd been awake for like 26 hours by the
Yeah.
time I was dead.
And see, that's one of the things I was thinking about when you were saying that you're going to be doing all these flights. I wonder like how far, like how much earlier are you getting to these shows?
Yeah, so I got here a week early. I don't know, I don't think there's a time difference from Dallas to here. I'd
Mhm.
like to think there wasn't. But yeah, next week it should be exactly the same.
Okay.
So that's
Perfect.
not too bad. But what I've been doing is going to bed at like 7:30, 8 p.m. this time, and
Hmm.
waking up at like 2:30, 3 a.m. this time, so that when I fly back to the UK, instead of it being like a 6 hour difference, it's only really like a 3 hour difference, and I'll be able to adjust a little bit better.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. No, for that, I mean, that sounds like a great idea. You said there's some other ones as well.
Yeah, so if you just go left from where you are,
Okay, this way.
yeah, click on that one. So I uploaded that today, but that top is my condition now. And if you
That's,
click to the next,
I mean, you look peeled in this picture.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
this one in the blue was on Tuesday, so I'm tighter than that now. So the top
Hmm.
that you just saw me in was from today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tighter
That's
through condition again.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are coming in great condition for sure.
Yeah, I just hope I can fill out fully now as well.
Yeah, yeah. So now you just need to peak basically.
Yeah, for sure.
So what does your peak look like? Are you eating anything in particular for your peak, or like what do you fill out with?
So we've recently discovered that I probably have a dairy intolerance, which is not
Oh,
ideal because I've been
fantastic.
yeah, I've been having yogurt every day. I've been having cheese, like, so not ideal. But so we've cut that out. So we pretty much keep everything the same. The water stays the same, the food stays the same, but the only thing now is we've just changed over to um beef wraps, which I have when I have carbs anyway, and cream of rice instead of oats, just in case the oats are causing a few issues
Hmm.
with them not being gluten free. So yeah, we've had to eliminate a few things over the past few days, but it's been really good being here with my coach because he actually picked up on the fact that whenever I ate my yogurt, within 30 minutes I had a blocked nose. Um And so he saw it at the house, and then he's picked up again a couple of times here. So he's like, you need to stop eating that yogurt. And then now that I've took out the dairy, I'm completely clear again. So
Are
yeah.
you do you take do you use protein powder?
Yeah. So we have to take out the whey as well.
Yeah, so I've got a protein powder that I use, and I'm not lactose intolerant, but my wife is, and
Okay.
this particular whey is isolated, is actually has like very minimal to no lactose in it, so it doesn't bother her stomach or anything like that. I'll send you a link to it. I don't get anything from it, but I just use it just because of her. So it might be something that's, you know, could help you out down the line as
Yeah.
well. So
That would be great. Thank you.
yeah. So if you're taking out the protein, like what are you replacing it with anything?
Yeah, I'm just replacing it with beef mince because I have that for two of the meals anyway. So I'm literally just taking out the whey and replacing it with meat, which doesn't seem to be affecting my digestion too much,
Hmm.
which is good. But yeah, I'm checking in after each meal now. So
Yeah.
I've noticed a massive difference actually just from taking out the yogurt and taking out the whey. I feel like my midsection has got a lot tighter. Which
Really? Okay.
yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess it would because, you know, since it's probably bloating you up real bad.
Mhm.
And now, you know, now that you've eliminated that, you probably feel much better too.
I do. It's been good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exciting. So, you know, with let's say you know, go to the Olympia, you know, you get your placing that you want, you go to the Olympia. Um, is there a particular like how do you see your competition going in the Olympia? Like how do you think you compare to some of the other girls that are, you know, gonna be
If
there?
if I was good enough to get to the Olympia this year, or if I am good enough to get to the Olympia this year,
Hmm.
then I don't see why I'm not good enough to place in the top 10. Because
Hmm.
if I don't, I must be lacking tissue. Um, However, if I'm not lacking tissue, then there isn't anything that other than maybe condition, but that's also what I want to gauge as well. Like it's completely different competing as an amateur as it is competing as a pro. Like the amateur, especially like the talent pool in the UK is very, very small. So you never get an accurate look of like where you are. It's not like nationals over here. Like
Right.
it's the girls that you would see in a whole class in nationals is how many wellness athletes you would see of that standard throughout the entire year
Hmm.
in the UK. So I really need to stand next to the girls and just gauge condition, muscularity, all of that type of thing. But in terms of stage presence, my posing, everything like that, like I will 100% be a standout even at that big of a show. I'm
Hmm.
say that with my chest wholehearted. So yeah, I think as soon as the muscularity is there, I don't see a limit on what I can achieve and where I can get to. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I love the fact that you're so confident. And you know, the thing about the posing and and things like that is that it's such a um like modifiable thing. You know, a lot of
Mhm.
competitors don't really focus that much on their posing. I think there's more of a push for it recently because you have a lot of people that just are strictly posing coaches and things like that. But for a while it was like people just kind of did their own thing and nobody really like, you know, like fine-tuned posing and things like that. So that's something that you can really like, you know, channel. And I love to see that. The tissue and things like that, like if you do require more tissue, that's just going to come in the off season, you know. And so there's not much you can like do about it in the moment. But
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
And if it is a condition thing, then, there's still, I think, 6 weeks.
Hmm.
So I'm only going to get better after each show. And then there'll be like, I think 3 weeks after that. So I have no kind of doubt in my mind that if that was to happen, I would have the perfect condition, the perfect presentation, the perfect person. Everything
Hmm.
would be perfect. The only thing I could be lacking is tissue. And like you said, it's an off-season fix. There wouldn't
Yeah.
be any. could do about it at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, like, when we were looking at your pictures, and I'm looking through them through your Instagram now. I mean, it looks you're very comparable to the girls on the pro stages and the Olympias as well. So it's like I don't see like like anything like outstandingly
Missing.
missing. Yeah. Of course, when comparisons come, that's kind of like where it will show, but from what I'm seeing, I don't see anything missing. So I think you're in good shape. It's just a matter of getting there and, like winning your show and getting there and
Yeah.
coming in,
We
hitting
all
the
see.
mark. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many people in their first season go to the Olympia? But I don't like statistics. I like to be
Yeah.
outside of them. So
Right.
that's the goal.
Right. I mean, well, all that, I mean, that's not just because other people didn't do it doesn't mean you can't. It's not like it's impossible. So, so the fact, you just have to just be confident, step on stage with confidence and, and see where you place. I'm sure you'll place very well. And I'm sure you will win a show and go to the Olympia. I don't see that not
Thank you
happening.
very much.
So,
I appreciate
yeah.
the vote of confidence.
Yeah, of course. So when you're so confident that that your presentation is going to be great, where does that come from? Have you always like been so confident about your posing and things like that, or is that just something that you've kind of developed over the last few years?
So I've always been like a bit of a performer. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't like to be like the cent in a like a social setting. I'll be the quietest person in the room. However, when it comes to performing, especially in a competitive setting, I'm a different person. So I've always danced. I've always just been a performer of some sort.
Hmm.
And I think I have like natural rhythm. I have an eye for detail. So when I started posing, like I've never had a posing coach. I've always just taught myself. I've done like I think 3 sessions with various posing coaches over the years, but
Hmm.
never like, had an actual posing coach who's made a real impact on what I do. And I think I genuinely put as much time into my posing as I do my training. Like not many people will say that the amount of hours they spend training, that's how long they spend posing, but I do. And that's why I can say it with such confidence because I could literally be like doing a million and one things and I'd be able to do my routine without even thinking about what comes next. It's so innate at this point. And I've practiced it to no end. So every little detail, every single movement, everything is intentional and it's been
Hmm.
thought about and it's been rehearsed. And I'm just so excited to actually put it out there. But I think where I've gone wrong in the past or where I've fallen short in the past is I don't know if have you heard of athletic identity?
I have not. What is this?
Okay, so my sports psychologist has been, I decided to hire a sports psychologist. And
Hmm.
the reason for that being was every time I got to show day, I would be so overwhelmed and overcome with anxiety. And I didn't understand why, and I would just cry constantly the day before. I would cry the morning of. I would be trying to not cry when my makeup was on, and it was crazy because presenting my physique on stage was probably my favorite thing about bodybuilding, and it was what appealed to me initially.
Hmm.
But ever since that very first show where I went in, and I didn't even realize this was why. This is what she had started to explain to me after she asked me like a bunch of questions. So she basically said that first of all, athletic identity. So when you are from a very young age competitive and you're successful within competing in whatever aspect you compete in, you start to form an athletic identity. And the longer you compete for, the stronger that identity gets. And it starts to become a part of who you are to the point where if you don't win, it's almost like who even am I if I'm not a winner? Who even am
I
I if I'm not
understand.
successful?
Mm.
So after that very first show, when I went in with the intention, after always being successful in everything that I did, because I physically can't lose anything, I have to put 150% effort into everything to make sure that I get the outcome that I want. So when I'd done that and I got to my very first show as a bikini athlete and I came dead last, the knock to my confidence, I didn't realize how massive of an impact that actually made. And it made me dread every single show day because I was so scared of the results. So even though I loved the routine, I loved the lifestyle and the practicing of the posing and getting ready for the show day, when it actually got down to getting on stage and waiting for the result, like it was a horrible feeling, and I just needed to understand it. And when she kind of like broke it down for me and like kind of worked it out for me, if you will, everything made so much more sense. And we've been working together for I don't know, like maybe a couple of months now. So I've got so many things that I've been doing to detach from that. Like me being able to sit here with you now and say, I fully believe that I have the potential to go all the way without saying, but if I don't, da da da, or like there's
Yeah.
always like, I used to always put that safety net in instead of just being like what I would say to myself, I wasn't able to say out loud to other people. And now I can, and I make myself, even if I go to like do the buts or the ifs or the anything, I just stop myself and I'm like, no, like you can do this, you will do this. And yeah, it's I think that athletic identity, understanding what that was, and like being able to kind of work my way around that kind of like I don't want to say trauma, that's so dramatic to say trauma from that first show, but that crushing feeling,
Mhm.
taking away the kind of anxiety around potentially feeling that again has been a massive shift. And that's where my confidence has now come from. A lot of people expect me to pose really well. Like a lot of people are going to be watching the live from the UK, are going to be watching the live stream and will be like, they're excited to see my routine because I've been harping on about it for months, about how it's like going to be amazing and this, that, and the other, and they'll be waiting for it. So I've put all this extra pressure on myself, which I didn't need, but I know, I fully believe that I'm going to nail it. So I'm
Mhm.
like, the pressure is welcomed. It's made me practice more and more and more. So yeah, I'm super confident in myself. I know I can do it.
It almost like it commits you to it. Like,
Yeah,
once you tell other people, it's like you're like completely committed to the fact
yeah.
that you're gonna do this. Yeah.
That's it. You're locked in then. And like the like the fear of like, oh, what will people say if I kind of mess it up used to scare me. And now I'm just like, nope, I'll take it in, keep loading it up.
It,
So
that's interesting, the concept of athletic identity. I was thinking about the fact that so I come from like a wrestling background, and there was a time where I started to win a lot, and then I got to a point where like during certain seasons I would get deep into the season and I wouldn't lose, and then as I would win and win and win, I would become more anxious and more anxiety, more fear, because I was afraid that I was going to lose that undefeated streak, or that, that continuous win. So it was like a very nasty feeling to have that. And you would think you would be more confident because you're winning more, but in reality, it's like you're afraid of what you're going to lose, everything that you've accomplished. And so I, I, I absolutely like agree with that for sure. And so when you, now that you kind of understand that and you worked through that, is it just a matter of telling yourself like, hey, this is, I'm going to do this. It's not going to be a problem. Or do you also kind of accept the fact that, look, the way the result is going to be, it's going to be, it's, I'm just putting my best package out there, because
yeah.
it is a subjective sport, right? Like it's not an objective sport. You're not putting a ball through a hoop. There's no, as you did track and field, there's no time. It's what a group of people think about your physique. You might not agree, other people might not agree, with them. Um, so what do you think?
I have fully accepted that, it is a subjective sport and the result will be the result. But what I won't do is allow myself to talk myself out of the result before it's even happened, or
Got it.
give myself that safety net of like, do you know what, that my biggest issue was that like I felt like I wasn't being authentic because I couldn't take a compliment. I couldn't have anyone tell me I look good, and most of the time I genuinely didn't believe that I did, and that's why I couldn't take it. But it was more what was going on in on the inside that was impacting that. But I would say, yeah, I think what I do now is, instead of ignoring things and like going, like, as soon as I start thinking about show day and I get anxious, or was getting anxious, I would just not think about it, not think about it. And then when it got to the day, I hadn't dealt with any of those emotions. And so I would get so overwhelmed that I couldn't stop crying. Whereas now I have worry time, or I have nerve time, like whatever that may be. So whenever I'm feeling that way, I like, if I've got stuff to do, I'll push it to the side, but then I'll sit there and I'll allow myself that 15 minutes to just think about all the things that could go wrong. And at the end, I will say, what if I can't stand up? And then I'll just stand up. What if I can't sit down? And then I just sit down. And I'm like, okay, so all of these what ifs that and what ifs that, but I still can. Like, just because that could happen, I'm still going to do it. I'm going to be fine. And it straight away just rationalizes everything. And I feel like, oh yeah, it's really not that big of a deal. So all of these things that I'm worried about, it's really nothing to worry about. And having that rationale has just been, it's been game changing.
Yeah. It's almost like I mean, you're controlling your emotions with your mind. You're kind of overpowering the emotions with your mind, and like you said, making things more rational, as opposed to just, very kind of, best word I can say is emotion. I feel like I said it already like 5 times, but yeah, just emotion, instead of being so emotional about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's very interesting. A lot of people are utilizing sports psychologists now. You hear it everywhere, in all kinds of sports. It's a interesting thing, but it makes sense because, I mean, people use psychologists for different things. I think in the past, just sports wasn't something that people thought of together with psychology, but I mean, it sure is, so for
100%.
sure, for sure. So what do you think about the division, the wellness division altogether? I know one of the things that you mentioned in the very beginning, and you said that you probably wouldn't think that this girl was this big now, but there are differences in wellness overall. Some girls like are almost to the point of like bodybuilder type of, legs, like real big physiques. Other girls are more streamlined. Like what do you think, what do you think the wellness physique should look like ideally?
Francielli.
Yeah.
Francielli is the epitome of wellness, and it's not even a cop out because she's Miss Olympia. It's the most, well, I'd like to say attainable, but it's not attainable for everybody. But it's not too big. It's not
Yeah.
like, because some of the girls that will win pro shows, because obviously they are the closest to the criteria on the day, doesn't mean they're perfect in the criteria, doesn't mean they would do well at the Olympia against other people that, are at the top of their game. But I think whenever let's say, mass monster wins a show, everyone's like, oh, okay, now this is the criteria. Like, no, that was just the person that was closest on that day. And if that was the look, I can honestly say I wouldn't compete, because that's not a look that I'm ever going to want to attain. Like, I'm not willing to push things to the level that you would need to push them to get that amount of mass on my small frame. It's not healthy. It's not good for the longevity of my body. Like, I want to be able to finish competing and be totally fine, be the happiest, healthiest version of myself. And so if that means I have to do things the long way, then I absolutely will. But there's certainly doors that I will not open. And I'm so glad that the criteria year on year is being reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. And I think even Issa, I think almost her quads got a little bit big as well. Her glutes have come up to kind of match them now. Her quads have downsized a little bit, I guess. But I think Francielli is just where it's just wellness to a T.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I think like you said, they're reinforcing that she's the criteria, because I mean, she's already won how many times? 3 times?
Yeah.
Three times, and I don't know, what's going to happen this year. I mean, Issa's obviously like, looks like she's the next, one up. Of course, anything could happen. There's a lot of good girls coming up, but yeah, but Issa's also shorter too. So I believe like she's short. At least she looks like she's a little bit shorter than Fran. I don't know. Maybe she's not, but
But They're actually, we're all pretty much the same height because we're all class A. So I
Okay.
saw them compete as amateurs. They're in class A. I'm in class A as well. So we'll be pretty much, within an inch of one another. So that's how I always gauge it as well. So it's perfect that the top two in the world are like my height. Because I'm like, okay, I can kind of like see better like how that
Mhm.
muscle would actually sit on a small frame. But I think some girls they just take it way too far. Like I've seen even potentially from the UK, like you'll see girls that are way bigger than those two girls. Like, they're the best in the world. That's the standard. It's black and white. Couldn't be
Yeah.
any clearer. And
Yeah.
yet they'll, be like, oh, I need to grow. And I'm like, grow where? Grow what? Like this is the criteria. Like you really don't. But I think the other kind of side of that is not everybody has the waistline that Fran and Issa have. So when you've got a
True.
thick waist, you're going to need to offset that somehow. And if that needs to be that your lower body needs to be, significantly bigger to theirs to create the same ratios, then, so be it. So I guess it's the
Yeah.
criteria, but it's how it's interpreted with different physiques also matters. And that's why getting that individual feedback from a head judge is so important because, they want some competitors to be leaner than others based on how it looks on their particular physique. Same with muscularity, and the same goes for bikini as well. It's very like person dependent, even though the criteria is the criteria.
Sure. I mean, I guess if just like with men, if you have like a weaker body part, if or like your waist is a little wider than it should be, you like you said, compensating with other muscle
Yeah,
groups to hide them. People that do that, they're probably gonna do well. They're gonna win some shows, but it's gonna be hard for people like that um to crack like the top
oh,
five or
yeah,
top three because
100%.
because the girls up top like they have the perfect dimensions. They have the perfect amount of muscle. I mean, they're the ideal look. It's going to be tough to cover up your inadequacy so much that you're competing with them. But
100%.
you have to do your
I think,
best, right?
yeah, no, I think everybody's genetic potential has a ceiling, and
Yeah.
obviously the better your genetics. I think a wide waist is just a death sentence for any dream like of like being at the top. It just really is. So I think obviously you can get to a set. Some people will be able to win a British final. Some people will be able to, or win a final, should I say,
Yeah.
win a pro card. Then they may even place in a pro show. Some people will like win a pro show, but then that when you have something that is literally something is out of your control, like a wide waist, there is always going to be that cap where you physically cannot go any further. And yeah, I personally feel like I don't have that, and I don't know how I would feel if I did, because
Mhm.
I couldn't imagine putting my actual life and soul into something where I didn't feel like where I felt like there was going to be a block in the road somewhere where
Right.
I physically would get to this and be like, okay, so no matter how much effort I put in, I physically can't get past this point. I genuinely don't know how I would handle that. But even if the judges think different, as long as I don't believe that, I can keep going and just go with the
You're a little
conclusion.
bit of a sports psychologist yourself then, huh?
Yeah, I'll thank my psychologist for that. Taught me a lot.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think I personally feel like the waste is a big issue more than anything. And to be honest, I don't know how much you keep up with male open bodybuilding, but there, that's something that has always kind of bothered me about the open side of male bodybuilding is because people used to, and maybe even to a degree now, not care so much about like their waist size because it's always like more mass, more mass, more mass. But it's like, yes, you have a ton of mass, but you still have to look, in a way that like people will, appreciate your aesthetics to some
Yeah,
degree. I mean, I understand, the open men's bodybuilding is be about the biggest guys, but it can't you can't just like ignore the waist. I remember years ago, Arnold even mentioned it himself. He said that was the one thing that he didn't like about bodybuilding now, is the fact that the waists are getting so big. So I think they tried to tone it down, but
Yeah.
Of course, it's, you know, it's just one of those things. It's going to happen as long as you keep pushing the drugs and keep pushing the food, and, you know, that's going to grow. So to your
And
point, you know, to your point that you were saying just a few minutes ago, it's like, you know, you have to, for yourself personally, especially in a division like wellness, know where your limit is, you know, and not cross that limit. So,
yeah, 100%. And I think just on the open men's bodybuilding point, I think that's where it gets funneled through to, you know, those genetic freaks that don't have to necessarily push the gym and the food to the point where they do ruin their midsection. You get once, you know, now and again, you get the Andrew Jacks of the
right,
world that come
right,
through.
right.
And, you know, he's been bodybuilding for all of 2 minutes and
Yeah.
yet looks like an absolute monster.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, like even Samson Dowder, like from, you know, the UK, his midsection is nice and
Mhm.
small as well. But yeah, it you know, unless you have the genetics
Right.
for that, it's just, yeah, you just, you know, dealt the hand you're given. But um yeah, I think with wellness, I think where a lot of athletes go wrong is they think that they need to put on all of this size, and their exercise selection isn't necessarily great. And in trying to grow their legs as big as they possibly can, their erectors grow and their lats grow, and like
Mhm.
they just get thicker. And that's one thing that I've been so like anal about, is making sure that that doesn't happen. And my midsection, my upper body is so much smaller this year than last year. The actual depth to my upper body as well is significantly smaller, and that is losing tissue in my erectors, losing tissue in my lats, through obviously not training it directly, but also taking out super heavy compounds that are like inevitably that's going to play a part. So yeah, I think a lot of people just need to be mindful of their exercise selection and their the heavy loads instead of
Mhm.
going down the volume route, especially if you have a wider waist, because it's only going to add to it.
So what does your exercise selection look like? And you don't have to go through like, you know, everything, but like what kind of things do you concentrate on, or?
I do mainly isolation now, to be honest.
Mhm.
There are the odd compounds in there like hack squat or like pendulum. But even that, I still like, it's not, you know, rep ranges of like 4 to 6. Like they're, you know, 12 plus, for example.
Mhm.
And I just think that I'm also very mindful of like breathing as well. So I'll always have my belt on, and I never work against the belt. I always work with the belt. I know you meant to kind of like bear down on it, but only to a certain degree. Like if I'm truly just like puffing, like that's it. Like, and that's why I'm saying like it will take me potentially longer to put on the tissue that's required. But by the time I get there, I won't have ruined my midsection. I won't
Mhm.
have, you know, the a big deep and a lot of depth to my back, etc. So yeah, a lot of isolation work, which to be honest, in terms of growth prior to bodybuilding, is what I did before, and it worked a treat.
Mhm.
But yeah, just the odd compounds, and
Yeah.
I try to do a lot of kind of like unilateral work as well, to make sure I don't have any imbalances, which I kind of currently do. So just trying to iron them out as well.
Right.
um
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, that sounds like you've got everything figured out. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm obsessed.
Well, you have to be, right? Like if you want to be
Yeah.
the best, you have to be obsessed. You can't be halfway, you know, doing things. That's part of it. That's part of it. Anything you're doing, you have to be kind of obsessed with it to be the best. So, yeah, for
100%.
sure. So if I were to get like top three, you think in wellness at the Olympia, excluding of course yourself, who would you put this year, you think?
It's definitely going to be Fran, Issa, and then the last one is, have you seen a girl like everybody is raving about this girl at the moment? I'm gonna get her up because I can't remember her name, but I saw her yesterday. Her name's, I feel like saying Edwin, not Edwina. Let me have a little look here. Her name is
Let me see. I might have actually seen her before.
If you, oh, that's it. There we go.
Oh, are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize I had the screen up this entire time. Fantastic. All right. There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone's raving about her, and they've been comparing her to Fran. And honestly, like she's not on, she's amazing. She's not on Fran's level yet. I'm actually competing against her this weekend, funnily
Oh,
enough.
okay. Okay.
Um,
So we'll see where, how
but
you
she
guys do.
Yeah, so she literally got her pro card, did a pro show, won a pro show, won another pro show, and now she's
Mhm.
doing the show this weekend. So she's got like some momentum as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's quite on Fran's level. I think the comparison has come from she's kind of modeled her posing style off Fran. She's got the blonde hair,
Hmm.
she's got the red
Hmm.
bikini. I think that's all contributed to it. But
Yeah.
it's really refreshing to see a smaller athlete win these shows. Like that's what I want to see because
Yeah. I mean, she definitely favors her. I would say, like you said, to her level, I would say probably not,
no,
but definitely favors her. And so and she's got the proportions kind of like her. So
yeah.
yeah, for sure. For
I
sure.
really like Bruna as well. Bruna Seredic, I think her name is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Bruna is amazing as well. Um, but I think the talent pool at the Olympia this year is going to be crazy. There's so many Brazilians. It's like this many Brazilians, this many US girls, and then just
Yeah.
a sprinkle of around the world. But no UK
Well,
girls yet.
I think because they had like a head start, right? I mean,
Yeah,
also genetics, but then they had a head start. So like they've
that's
been
true.
because they had wellness for quite a while before it came to the IFBB, and then people started jumping on the bandwagon, at that
Yeah,
point. But
no, that's true.
um, yeah, it'll be interesting. What about and I don't know if like again, you obviously know your bodybuilding across the divisions, but open men's, what do you think?
I would like to see Andrew Jacks. I think Nick Walker's a freak, but I think it's not very aesthetic. Derek Lunsford is definitely going to be in the mix, being former Mr. Olympia. Um, but Andrew Jack, I'm just like don't
Hmm.
want to say not obsessed in a weird way, but obsessed with his physique.
Yes.
I think his stage presence, his persona, like everything, he embodies what a Mr. Olympia should be on
Hmm.
every level. I think what Derek Lunsford has done is he's got the Mr. Olympia title, had a baby, faded into the background, and like he cancelled his tour and this, that, and the other. I feel like when you get that title, like there's a certain expectation that should be met, and it's not just hide away until the next year comes around. Like
Yeah.
that's not what it's about. And I feel like Andrew Jacks would be the person to really take that in his stride and make the most of it. And it's very motivating. I love to see that and to you know I was really looking forward to him coming over and seeing doing the tour and things like that. So it was
Hmm.
disappointing when he didn't. But
Yeah.
yeah, Andrew Jacks for the win in my eye.
Yeah, I personally don't think he's going to win, but I
Maybe not
definitely,
this year, but
yeah,
it's coming.
but I definitely agree with your like assessment as far as like the overall kind of look that a Mr. Olympia, we're used to, or at least should have. Because when I'm thinking of like like a Ronnie or like those kind of guys, they're like these kind of, like he's got that same feel to him,
Yeah,
and I think part of the problem, like that you were, I think when Ramy won, and I don't know if they were talking about Hadi in the same way, but one of the things that they were saying about Ramy is that he wasn't a very like a how can I put this, like a very accessible Mr.
yeah.
Olympia, and
Absolutely.
and that's what people were saying too. They were just saying like we need a Mr. Olympia who's going to be representing the sport and kind of
Oh, yeah.
growing the sport,
No,
with it. So, anyways, yeah, I
I agree
totally
with that.
understand.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think I suppose that's why I'm glad Hadi did win. Obviously not last year, the year before, but because it shows that it was genuinely they were choosing the best physique on the day, which is
Right.
a great thing, and it kind of like gives you that like okay. there isn't too much politics behind things. So it's like relieving in that way, but at the same time, like as a fan of the sport, I want a Miss Olympia that can, you know, like you said, represent the sport,
Yeah.
grow the sport, and give you that, like, you know, motivation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I definitely think the Olympias now, last few years, have been really interesting because, to your
yeah,
point, I don't think they're choosing. I don't think there's like as much politics as it used to be. Like you'll see some Mr. Olympias like win. Dorian one year comes to mind when he has bicep ripped. I think Ronnie could have lost to Jay before, but he didn't. One of the Olympias. So like sometimes when you get an Olympia champion there for quite a few years in the past, they would give him a win. And but in this case I don't see that happening. I think we're getting the best Olympia shows these
yeah.
last years, so yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
they're shaking things up for sure.
Yeah.
There's something really figure and wellness that have become, oh, sorry, and classic, of course,
Yeah,
have become predictable.
right.
But the others are, yeah, they're mixing it up. It's fun to see.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Mia, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Had a good time.
I've really enjoyed it, so thank you very
Yeah,
much.
of course. And I'm wishing you well on the show. And also, if anybody wants to reach out to you, like for either, help with training, nutrition, or podcasts, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So you can message on Instagram. It would be Mia Onwuna, so MIAONWUNA at no underscore IFBB Pro. Is it? I think so, yeah.
It's all right. Well, I'll tell you what,
That's it.
what I'm gonna do is link everything at the bottom, guys, so you can easily access Mia's page, whether she got her own Instagram right or
Name
not.
right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
Thank you
Mia.
so much.
All right, Mia. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.